Having been a priest for several years, I sometimes struggle to come up with new ideas for my homilies. This Epiphany was one of those times. As a result, I went and sat in silence in the little chapel in the presbytery and said to the Lord, "What would you have me say?" The response I got was, "Ask the people, who is Jesus for you?" So brothers and sisters, I'll stop for a moment so that I can ask you the question, who is Jesus for you? While you're thinking about who Jesus is for you, I'll recall when I went to Italy in 2010 with my father. We went to visit some of the plots of land that used to belong to his family. At one of the plots that we visited, which was adjacent to the winding road leading up to the village, there was a shepherd there with his sheep. The shepherd was standing in silence, leaning on his crook, as he watched attentively over his sheep. He had with him a couple of smaller dogs for rounding the sheep up, and 2 huge white dogs to protect the sheep from attacks from wolves. It was a truly beautiful scene of serenity, peace, and security. Brothers and sisters, as we come together to celebrate the feast of the Epiphany, it is good to remind ourselves what the word means. Basically, Epiphany means manifestation. So the feast of the Epiphany is the feast of the manifestation. The manifestation of what? Of God, of course. In the human person of Jesus, the Spirit God was made manifest. Initially, he was made manifest to Mary and Joseph, then to the shepherds, then to the wise men, and then to the rest of the world. In the gospel reading that we just heard, there seems to be an emphasis on Jesus manifesting as a king. But today we're not celebrating the feast of Christ the King. That feast we recently had at the end of the last liturgical year. So what then are the Epiphany readings trying to tell us about Jesus? Well, let's break it down. The first reading focuses on the glory of the Lord. In the presence of the Lord, Isaiah tells us that we'll grow radiant and our hearts will be throbbing. The shepherds' hearts seem to be throbbing. The wise men, having travelled who knows how many kilometres, probably had throbbing hearts when they finally found the infant king of the Jews. But what about us? Are our hearts throbbing, brothers and sisters, as we look on the baby Jesus here in the crib? Do we recognise God made manifest, not only in this baby Jesus, but also in the small, seemingly insignificant hosts in the tabernacle that we receive at communion time, where the glory of the Lord remains hidden from the unspiritual eye? Moving to the psalm, we see the focus on a future prophetic figure, one who will judge the people with justice and the poor in right judgment. He shall rule across the world, and justice and peace shall flourish under his rule. Brothers and sisters, are you thirsting for justice and peace? Have injustices been done against you and your loved ones? As a result, have you entrusted to Jesus your predicament so that he may bring justice, healing, and peace? Why do so many in the world thirst for justice, yet so little of them want to know the only one who can bring true justice and thus peace to the world? In the second reading, we see the manifestation of a new system of governance of sorts, where all nations and all peoples are governed in justice and peace. Brothers and sisters, have we been eager, like St. Paul, to share God's loving embrace of every single person, including all the so-called pagans of our day, perhaps even our own family members and friends? Do we bring Jesus to them in the same way the prophets and apostles did in those early centuries and the saints in the centuries since? Finally, in the gospel, the figure of Jesus is a newborn, not even able to speak, yet he is named by the wise men as the infant king of the Jews. Brothers and sisters, is Jesus, though he is hidden from our eyes, in the same way the baby Jesus was hidden from the eyes of King Herod, our king? Are we ready to prostrate ourselves before him? Are we prepared to give him all manners of gifts, our hearts, our minds, our strength, our treasures? Of all that the Epiphany readings are teaching us about who Jesus is, perhaps the most beautiful of descriptions is in the Gospel, where one of the prophets is quoted as writing, "He would shepherd his people Israel." How blessed are we, brothers and sisters, to have a God, a King, Lord and Master, whose main focus is not to rule over as master, but to shepherd us, like that old shepherd on my grandfather's land, ever watchful, ever loving, ever desiring the good of and care for his flock. In Jesus, God, the Almighty Father's gentle and loving care is made manifest. Yes, he is the Lord and King of the universe, but above all, he is our loving Good Shepherd, who wants to protect and tend us. So finally, let us ask ourselves, is Jesus for me the loving Good Shepherd? And if the answer is yes, then why don't we want to tell the world?